NIO has scrapped plans for its United States electric car factory. However, it says it's cheaper for them to pay the 25% tax, simply make the cars in China, send them to the United States, and then, well, sell hopefully thousands of cars to Americans who are happy to buy electric vehicles made in China. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Welcome to the new subscribers. Great to have you. Welcome back, everyone else. If you can support us on Patreon, that'd be amazing. I'll put a link in the description below. NIO obviously make a number of different electric cars. They've got some pretty impressive cars. Recently, they've begun selling a number of different vehicles in Europe, and they've also been trying to raise a lot of money. And they just fired 10% of their staff all around the world because they need cash. The company spends money, and it spends a lot of money on, I guess, technology and development, but also spends a lot of money on things like battery swapping facilities. So when you buy a NIO car, you can actually get a battery swap. So you can basically drive into a NIO swapping station, and the machine will swap your battery out in about 2.5 to 3 minutes. And you can drive away with a new battery rather than having to charge your car. That's one advantage of a NIO vehicle. The disadvantage is that obviously this is mainly a China feature. So you guys in the United States, when you can buy NIO's EVs, of course it would take many years before these features are commonplace in the United States. And I don't think they will be. I personally don't think it makes sense, just because of the reason that new batteries will be able to charge so much quicker than batteries can today. We're looking at 10 to 14 minutes for a full charge with some of the newer battery technology coming out. So what is NIO saying about their United States plans? Should you buy a NIO EV? Should you wait for one? Well, NIO says it looked at setting up vehicle manufacturing in the US, but it's too expensive. It said it was more affordable and made more sense for the company to simply import them from China and then pay the 25% tax that, but basically was a tax that Trump created. And Trump said, well, if you guys, for example, buy a vehicle made in the US, so if the Chinese do, of that brand, then you don't have to pay the tax. So what General Motors does, it sends some of its vehicles to China, and then it can send vehicles that it makes in China back to the United States. As long as the number is basically the same, those taxes don't apply. So it's kind of like a fair for fair equation. And that's the only reason that companies like BYD are not selling thousands and thousands of electric cars in the United States, because of the 25% tax. NIO's quest for a potential US manufacturing site said it yielded no results that it liked, and it led the automaker to opt for importing electric vehicles from China instead. Consequently, the EV manufacturer has abandoned any prospects of its EVs qualifying for tax incentives. Therefore, of course, NIO vehicles will be more of a niche product in the US. They will be relatively more expensive, more like BMW, Audi, that sort of level, Lexus, that kind of price premium. You're going to have to pay a premium to buy one of these vehicles. Should you pay a premium? Well, that depends. I mean, they do have some good vehicles. Are they enough better to justify paying that premium? Well, we haven't seen the prices yet. Depends on what the prices come out as in the US. The Inflation Reduction Act gives around $7,500 tax credits to Americans who buy EVs that are made in North America and are priced below a certain price point. So it's below $80,000 for an SUV, crossover type vehicle, but it's below $60,000 for a sedan. Automakers are aiming to extend the tax reduction to all buyers, whether they lease or buy, such as Hyundai and Kia, who have chosen to make significant investments in US manufacturing. So one of the key reasons why so many automakers, even Toyota, Hyundai, Kia, many Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Volkswagen Group, even Mazda, Subaru, have chosen that at some point they will manufacture EVs in the US is simply because of these so-called unfair practices. Obviously, Japanese Prime Minister says it's unfair. South Korean President or Prime Minister says it's unfair. Europeans say it's unfair. They do institute similar policies in their own country, but they think that those policies are fair where they are from, but they're not unfair in the US. It's fair to say that that's a bit strange. Anyway, at the next China conference hosted by the China Project news outlet in New York on Thursday, Ganesh Iyer, the head of NIO's operations, said that the automaker would not be part of the wave of foreign automakers setting up factories in the US. Instead, the company aims to commence importing Chinese-made vehicles to the States either in 2025 or possibly at the end of 2024. So you're going to see NIO vehicles in the US pretty soon. The company said it actually identified 3 different states as potential manufacturing locations, but the high cost of establishing operations in the US has deterred them. Cost cutting has been a big focus for the automaker in the last few weeks, as it's been trying to raise funds from investors, but investors have been, well, not as forthcoming as they were in the past with giving NIO cash. So NIO has had to basically promise investors that it would start slowing down its losses. It's losing around $30,000 on every car it sells. And that might be okay for a new manufacturer, but NIO's been around for a few years now. And investors are starting to say, you know what, it's time to turn a profit. There's so much money being poured into this company. Will it be a success? We don't know. The risks are growing because your debts are growing. So NIO has to kind of button down the hatches, stop spending so much money, and obviously fire a significant percentage of its workforce. In China, NIO announced on Friday that it would be reducing the workforce by 10% and postponing or cancelling investments in long-term projects that wouldn't yield returns within the next 3 years. The company's financial situation is, well, according to US media sources, quite dire, with a recent report indicating that it incurs losses of $35,000 on every vehicle it produced over the past 12 months. Cost wasn't the sole concern for the company, though. They pointed out that the company relies on several suppliers that do not operate in the United States. Additionally, NIO's highest priced vehicles wouldn't be eligible for incentives anyway, regardless of their place of manufacture, due to their high standard MSRP. However, if the company opts to import its vehicles directly from China, it will still have to deal with pretty big tariffs. The expense of importing Chinese vehicles into the US, along with NIO's ongoing cost-cutting initiatives, introduce an element of uncertainty despite the US NIO CEO's statements. When asked about the manufacturer's confidence in launching its first vehicle in the US in 2025, they acknowledged that while it was the company's goal 2 years ago, that things are changing. Nevertheless, they have remained committed to a US launch in 2025. Here's what NIO's CEO in the US said. My goal and my commitment to this company is I want all of us to buy a NIO car from our personal paycheck one day. I hope that one day will be sooner, which means we need help from everyone, government, policymakers, supply ecosystem, and infrastructure readiness. Well, if NIO's US CEO believes that the US government is going to give it some handouts when it's making the cars in China, well, that isn't going to happen. Zero chance. So, realistically, will this plan succeed? I think it's probably unlikely. NIO may be able to sell maybe some more of its higher priced vehicles in very small numbers like it does in Europe. Yeah, it's true. It sells very few vehicles in Europe. The vehicles are just, I don't know, generally most people believe that for a new brand, they're too expensive. So that's what I think will probably happen in the United States. However, I could be wrong. What are your thoughts on this one? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.